Hey guys, if you're seeing this part, you are seeing the replay, so go ahead and comment replay down below. Hey guys, it is Gwen here from Olive and Oak, and I am going to be showing you our July subscription box. Now July is kind of that weird in-between part. Like, yes, we're celebrating 4th of July and things like that, but by the time you get to sit down and create this project, I knew it would be too late for summer stuff, but I'm not quite ready for fall, so we decided on doing something that you could use all year round that doesn't really have a season attached to it, but I wanted to give you guys kind of some fun options. So what we are going to be creating, so this is the package you get, but what we are creating is one of these really cool, and everything's going to be backwards because my camera is backwards, sorry guys, cubbies. And there's a lot of different things you can use this for. So I put string on this one so that I can hang this one, but this one has mail in it. I put some greenery in there just for fun for right now, but this one I plan on using at home for our mail. My goal is, instead of having a big heap on the counter, to get stuff out of the mailbox, sort through it. If it's trash, throw it away. If it's something we need to look at again, put it in this little cubby. It's something that we can save and continue to use, and I love the little tile pattern on there. So we're going to be using a couple different techniques, 3D painting as well as some stencil painting. But inside of your kit, which you've either had mailed to you already, it's been picked up, or it's here and ready for pickup, you're going to have stain, which is our light stain, which is our most popular, white and black, a foam brush, the string to hang it, stencils, your reminder to be here, the picture of the project, and of course the wood pieces. Now on this piece that's inside of here, I don't want to open up Lindsay's package here, but on this piece right here, there is a QR code that will take you to a survey. And I know some of you guys have already done it, but if you are a member and have not done the survey, I highly recommend doing it, because that is where I pulled information from for last names. So I'm getting a spam call, sorry guys. Sorry about that, we're getting a spam. And hopefully it comes back because now it's telling me slow connection. But the stencils I sent you as the mail, a welcome option. That would be great if you're going to hang this maybe by your front door with flowers in it, or maybe even in an office, or your last name. Now if you haven't filled out the survey and put in the custom last name you wanted for any personalized projects, instead you've got whatever last name was on your billing, so hopefully we got the right ones, but if not, you do have those other options there as well. But let's get into making this project. And I see a couple people hopping on that I know aren't in our subscription box. You guys are welcome to hang out with me anyway, and if you are, go ahead and say hi. But if you're interested in our subscription box, there is a link in the description of this video, as well as in the comments, that'll take you to our wait list. Our next box will come out in September. We're in July, August, September. We do every other month in September, and it will be a fall themed project. So we're gonna kind of take this whole project apart. You're gonna have these, my voicemail's trying to yell at me now. We have these small pieces we're going to set aside. These are going to be for the sides to build kind of the actual thickness of our box. But for right now, I'm going to set those guys aside. You're going to have two pieces that have sort of this ornate design. Fun fact, this is the same design I used in the fireplace that is in the front of our shop that we get a lot of compliments on, so I figured you guys would like it too. So those pieces we'll set aside for right now. I'm going to start with our base pieces, which are going to be this one here. Mine is a little discolored. I always keep a funky one for myself. And then this piece. So what you would do is you would paint these pieces or stain them, whatever you want for your background color. On this one, I have it as what my white design is. So this is what the tile design really comes out in. I feel like this one I want to do different though. I think I'm gonna stain this part, and we're gonna try to switch the colors around so I can show you guys some different ways to do this. So I'm gonna open my stain. Inside your kit you have a foam brush, and this is what you're going to use to apply kind of all the things. A foam brush is going to be our friend for all the steps. So I'm going to go ahead and dip this into here and start swiping it on there. Now one thing I will say is this bottom half of this, you're not going to see it, but I'm going to fill it in anyway. And then if you want a lighter stain look, you would apply less stain, and if you want a heavier, thicker, darker color, you can definitely apply more than one coat. Something else I like to use once in a while to apply stain is a baby wipe. It's really smooth. And I will tell you too, the stain we use is a water-based stain, so don't be worried about throwing your stain rag in the trash afterwards. It's water-based, it comes off your hands really easy, it has no smell, it's not sticky, it dries fast, all the things. We love a water-based stain. Let me get this one kind of all brushed out on here. Get this filled in. Yeah, and we're going to do something that would just be Easy to take through all the seasons. Now, one thing I think would be cool if you did want to do, instead of using it as a mail slot, if you wanted to use it as something to hold some flowers or like a little welcome sign, would be to put different seasonal greenery and florals in it so that it could really just, like an easy interchangeable. So you could easily add, you know, holly berries at Christmas time, some fall leaves, and florals in the fall. Sunflowers right now would be really good. I would say you can probably see the balloon arch still. We just had a couple of sunflower workshops where we had all kinds of different projects, and it was fun because some people painted them more to be summer friendly, some people did them more to be fall, and some did it sort of neutral, so it was easy to take between summer and fall, and that's why I love sunflowers. But get this all filled in. I'm trying to decide if I want to do white on top. I might do white on top to do it really, really different than my last one. But in just a minute here too, I'll show you guys how to do the stencil part of it, which is really not hard, I promise. I'm gonna do white on top. I think I'm gonna stain my other piece too. So let's just get this filled in first. Okay, so there is my berry backboard. My favorite brand of stain, I like Bare water-based stains because they aren't sticky, they dry, they don't smell. It's not an oil-based, so you're not worried about stain rags in the trash can combusting. That would be terrible. So Bare water-based stain is what we use. Switch over. This is going to be the plate for behind my actual small word part. So this is like the pocket, I guess you would say. Cover this in stain, and then the other part I'm going to do in stain is going to be where we're actually going to put our word. I think. Maybe. This all smoothed out. You're welcome. I know I'm not in my usual spot for doing this. I'm kind of at a weird angle, but it is because if I turn this camera around and show you the rest of the shop, your eyes would get real big. Jonathan and his dad have been up here. They are deep organizing and building some much needed shelves in the back part of our studio to organize our material and projects that have been cut and need to either be wrapped for our shelves or be stashed for workshops. I think I'm going to do this part in black and then I'll stencil. Yeah, I think I'm going to do this little guy in black. Change of plans, but that's okay. Alright, so I'm going to put my stain away for right now. I'm going to switch to my tile pieces. So you'll want to rinse out your brush really, really good between colors. So I am like super organized when I paint. I try to paint everything that needs to go this color first, and then I'll switch to the next piece and so on and so forth. So now I'm going to switch to my tile pieces. Again, it's totally up to you. Obviously you can paint the whole thing, but anything that's kind of below where the tile point is going to be tucked behind the pocket part and you're not going to see it. So it's up to you if you want to paint that section or not. I'm going to grab my white. One thing I will mention when you're painting pieces like this is I try to paint really carefully to where I'm just on the face of my project and not super down into the grooves, because if not, you're going to end up wanting to paint all of these little inner parts and you will not like yourself afterwards. It's just not very fun. So I try to focus mainly on getting my paint on the face of my project. And as with anything, I always recommend light coats, and if you need to do two or three coats, it's not a big deal. When you paint really heavy, sometimes the paint doesn't like to dry evenly. My table's on a weird angle, so it's making everything pop while it's supposed to be flat. We'll get this part all covered. Oh. It's my alarm telling me our chicken's almost done at home. I cheated. I'm doing crock pot tonight so that nobody actually has to cook. And earlier I asked Levi, I know some of you guys are new to me. I have a 6-year-old named Levi, and he's a very, very, very picky eater. So he has gotten to a point where he tells us all the time he doesn't like chicken unless it's chicken nuggets or chicken wings. Those are the exceptions to that rule. But if it's like grilled, like chicken breast, he's not into it anymore. But I have gotten him to eat like crock pot shredded chicken. If I put it in the crock pot with like barbecue sauce or something like that, he's usually on board. So I asked him earlier, I said, hey, if I make those little mini chicken sandwiches with the shredded chicken and the barbecue sauce on those little rolls, so you eat it, we get like the little Hawaiian rolls and put it on there, he thinks those are great. He said, yeah, that's like my favorite kind of chicken. I like that even better than McDonald's. So that is a win in our book. I was just talking on my personal page, we had some very, what's the word I'm looking for, parenting moments today. We were in the car and just talking about stuff, and in general, I've been trying really, really hard to teach him to be thankful for the things we have and not focus on things we don't have. So like a couple weeks ago, we went to the water park and we got to play on all the slides, and we got to go up, like our water park it's like behind a fun zone. There's a restaurant, and then like arcade and all that sort of stuff. And then when you go out behind, there's these big steps you go down to the water park. But anyway, went to the water park, did all the things, rode the slides, you know, everything there is to do at our water park pretty much, except for the big slides he's not tall enough for yet. And then we went upstairs and we had dinner, just him and I. And then he wanted to play in the arcade, which sounded good, so we went and played in the arcade. Well, there was, they do the Dippin' Dots ice cream there, and he had asked about Dippin' Dots, but he was telling me he was freezing from being cold from the water, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Why don't we go play games first, let your belly settle from dinner, and then, you know, we'll see from there. But, like, you've been really cold, so I don't even know if ice cream is a good idea. And he was like, well, here's the thing, Mom. What if we get it as we're leaving, and then I can eat it in the car where I'm not so cold anymore? So he had a plan in mind. And so I was trying to roll with it. But we played games, we did all the things, and then when it came time to leave, we rounded the corner, which I still was not 100% sure was a good idea to get the Dippin' Dots, but he had a plan in mind, and the Dippin' Dots counter was closed. And it just ruined the whole day. And it became a whole thing, you know, that I didn't, he was like, that's why I wanted to get that before dinner. And I was like, that's just not how that works, bud. And, you know, it became a whole argument, and on the way home, he was really upset with me, and you know, all the things. And I just, finally, I had to stop the car. We were at a stoplight, and I turned around and I told him, I said, yeah, but think about all the good stuff we got to do today. We got to go on the slides and play in the arcade and eat pizza and, you know, all the things that kids like to do. I said, you can't let one thing, just Dippin' Dots, ruin your whole entire day of fun stuff. He did, though. And he was upset on the way home. So we've been having a lot of the discussions about being happy about what you do have and not focusing on what you don't. And just in general trying to be, you know, thankful for things. And today was a little bit harder one to discuss. He was talking about how there are some friends that he hasn't really gotten to see very much this summer, and he was pretty bummed out about it. And I had said, you know, yeah, but we got to hang out with these friends last weekend, and we got to go to this person's birthday party, and you know, just trying to remind him of all the good things we have gotten to do and see friends and hang out with them. But his focus was, of course, on the friend that he hadn't gotten to see. And I was trying to remind him of all the good things. And then he kind of like made, I don't know, you know how little ones, it's just a bad habit. They kind of whine sometimes when they're trying to make a point. You know, it's part of their nature. And so we kind of whined something. I couldn't really hear him. And I said, okay, you need to speak up, because he's in the, you know, the back seat of the car. I was like, you're going to have to speak up. I can't hear you. And he did it again, and it was still whining. I was like, hey, Levi, you're whining, and I can't hear you. Can you please, you know, speak up? I can't hear you. And finally he says, well, when they don't hang out with us, it makes me feel like they don't care about me. And man, my mama heart had a hard time. And I told him, you know, I'm sorry, but I know that doesn't feel good. And then I was quiet for a couple of minutes because I didn't have anything else to say that was going to fix that. I was not prepared for these emotions with a 6-year-old. I figured I'd at least make it to junior high before this, but that's clearly not going to be the case. I am moving on. I'm going to start working on my front tile piece, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of trying to smooth over the top of it and not get down into those grooves so much. But yeah, my mama heart was struggling because I know that feeling like you've been left out or haven't been included or weren't cared about by a friend, even at 32 hurts. So I can only imagine that feeling at 6 when you feel those feels. And yeah, I didn't have an answer for him. I just kind of told him, I know, bud, it stinks, it's not fun. And then we went on about the day. Now, don't get me wrong, 10 minutes later, he was being a little turd at home and not listening. So I think he, you know, at least for the time being, has diverted his attention to something else. But that's just what's been on my heart all day. I'm hoping that when we're going back to school, you know, he's going to see buddies every day. And that'll help alleviate some of that feeling, but it's just not a fun one. And it feels icky and I can't fix it. So we're just kind of hanging in there in the meantime. But our kiddos go back to school next week. And I'm hoping, you know, just some of that feeling of, you know, not having a schedule, not having somewhere to be and friends to see every day kind of subsides at least a little bit. I know it won't be perfect, because then there's a whole different, you know, game that you're playing is everybody's busy because it's school time and it's not, you know, endless summer anymore. But we'll see. Just having that, you know, friend interaction on the playground every day will probably help. I hope. But this part's almost filled in, and then the other part I'm going to paint with this as well is going to be my 2 side pieces. So let me get these done and I'll show you which parts are the sides of the box. I will say, if you guys are commenting anything, it's not showing them anymore. Sometimes my phone does that. I was trying to get my laptop set up for videoing and it just was not wanting to play nice. So we're using my phone today. And sometimes it doesn't play nice. Or it will for like the first 5 minutes, and then after that it'll lock me out again. Or not lock me out, but not show me things. And like I said, with this white, I'm doing a pretty light coat on here because thick coats don't dry very nicely. And then that's also when you're doing a thick coat is when you have lots of paint glooped down into those sides. I'm going to let that part dry while I work on the sides, and then we'll take a peek at it and see if it needs a second coat. I honestly might leave it because it almost reminds me of like a linen look, which is always fun. Try different techniques. So now the next pieces I'm going to paint are going to be what's on the side of our box. So on my original one, I did it in black. This one, since I'm doing my box in white, I'm going to do it in white. But you'll have 3 pieces that'll have you'll have one that has 3 teeth and then 2 that only have 2 teeth. So we're going to paint the ones that have 2 teeth. One thing I will say is when you're painting these, make sure you are painting the opposite ones. So your teeth should face opposite ways. These are kind of universal. They can go front or back, but make sure you are painting at least one where the teeth are pointed left and one where they're pointed right. Or paint both sides if you want to. One side's going to be inside the box, so I'm not too worried about painting that one. Smooth surfaces are definitely a lot easier to paint than the tile pieces, but they come out so cool. I thought about doing stencil for the tile, but I figured you guys would hate having to weed all the pieces back out, because when you're done, you have to pick whatever's left behind back off. So I was like, let's just do it with a laser cut piece, and then they'll still love me. This one, I really think I might leave this one layer of white because I kind of like the little bit of wood grain showing through. It reminds me of like a linen wash. Now, if there's other colors that you use in your home decor, by all means, use them on this project and they'll look super cool. I know one of the ladies in our club really likes purple, and so I've seen her mix purple into a lot of her projects, and I think that's awesome. If you have, I actually just had friends who bought a house, and I've been collecting paint cans to use as containers for our different tools here in the studio, and she had brought me 3 as they were selling their old house that were from old paints that, you know, weren't needed anymore. And she bought her new house. Actually, she's one of our club members, Michelle. She messaged me and said, hey, my new house has a bunch of paint cans too, are you interested? And I was like, sure. And then she sent me a picture, and she wasn't kidding when she said a bunch. There's probably, I'd say no less than 30, maybe I'm exaggerating. I'd say 20, at least 20, if not more. I'll have to count them later. Paint cans that were hiding in her garage that she's not going to need. So she passed them on to me, and we're going to clean them out and use them for containers for picks and brushes and all kinds of cool stuff. I'm really going all in on this paint craft thing that we're working towards. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this just a single coat. I know it's probably hard to see on the camera, especially in this lighting, but I didn't go really, really heavy on the paint, but it looks really cool, so we're gonna roll with that. Now, this is totally up to you. It depends on how particular you are with your projects. On the side of this one, since this one's gonna be a white box or whatever, if you wanted to paint the sides, you could. I'll see if I'm gonna be that picky about it, but if I do, I will wait till I'm done and have everything glued together to paint them. But it's kind of the same process. You're just gonna paint alongside. Well, now I'm gonna have to paint them because I painted this one, but that's okay. We'll come back to that part later. Okay, I'm gonna set that down, rinse out my brush. There's my lid. Alrighty, so now, this one I didn't worry about painting because this is gonna be on the bottom and I'm never gonna see it, but you could paint this one too if you wanted to. But now I'm gonna work on my little nameplate piece, and I'm gonna do this one in black. Like I said, I wanna do this box totally different than my last one so that we can have some different variations of what it could look like. But same as all the rest of them, I'm just gonna paint the face of this. And this is gonna be the one that's really important to dry, so you can do we'll do the box assembly while we're waiting for this piece to dry, because when you go to put your stencil on, whatever you're putting it on needs to be bone dry. If not, it's gonna peel up your background paint, and that's not fun. Which is another reason to do light coats instead of a really heavy coat on your paint. Because if not, you'll have, like, your top layer will start to dry, but your underside will still be kind of wet, and you'll still have the same peeling problem. I'm gonna let that set. It might need a little bit more. It's funny, you would think black would have really good coverage, but ours, for some reason, you have to do 2 coats even on black. So we're gonna work on assembly and get that put together, and then we will come back to that part and do stenciling. So the part I'm gonna start with is gonna be our background piece. So I'm gonna take my very back solid piece and lay that one down in front of me, and then I'm gonna take the longer piece with the tile pattern, and I'm gonna put glue on the back side of this and then press it down even on this piece. So I'm gonna put some glue on here. Now, I don't get super crazy with the amount of glue. We just use a wood glue. And as long as you get mostly your outsides glued on there well, you're gonna be just fine. Like your outside edges, I'll show you guys where I've got glue in just a sec. Like, I'm not gonna glue in between every single little nook and cranny on the tiles. So I've got kind of my outside part. I guess you can kind of see that. We've got a frame sort of going around. I'm gonna put some extra in this middle section just because it's a big area. And then in between the tiles, you can kind of see where the longer rectangles are. I'm gonna glue just right in between those, which is where it kind of like separates to be different. The idea is for it to look like different tiles. But I'm not gonna go in between all the little tiny tile nooks because I don't need to. So this is my glue on there. And I probably went a little heavy in this middle part, but it's fine. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna lay this part down flat, and we're gonna make sure we line it up with all the corners kind of being nice and even. You do have a little bit of wiggle room for error, but of course try to get them as centered as you can. Centered up here. So your tile part should be on top of your back part. Now I'm gonna lay this down for a minute so that it has some time for the glue to set. This would be a great time to break out a really heavy book to put on top of it, which I don't have handy at the moment, or weight. I don't think I have anything right here, so we're just gonna kind of press it down and let nature take its course. Or gravity, I guess. Now we're gonna do the same thing with our front. Hey Denise! With our front section, which is going to be the front of our pocket, we're going to take our solid piece and we're going to glue our tile piece on top of it. This part on there. I just feel like it feels super quiet in here because we always have music going or something going, but because of guidelines and stuff, I can't have music playing in the background during a video because it'll mute it, and that would be kind of bad. Alrighty, same thing. I got a little bit of glue in my middle section, a frame all the way around, and then I just did the cross parts where the tile sections would be. And I'm gonna set that guy nice and even on there. this. Awesome. So I'm gonna let those two set for just a minute. I'm gonna come back to this guy who could use a little bit more paint. So I'm gonna put another coat of the black on there. And I just realized I'm gonna need more white. I should have waited to do the white, but it's okay. That's what I'm gonna stencil with this on the white. There we go. Nice and thick. Set that guy aside. That'll be the last piece that I put on. What kind of, if I put a string on there, that would be my last piece. Alright, I'm done with the black, so I'm gonna set that one aside. And I will say it's harder to do black after white. Or let me rephrase that. White after black. So I'm gonna steal a separate brush other than trying to rinse that one back out to do my white. Just to make life easy for this one. Alrighty, so now we're gonna look at doing our actual box pieces. So hopefully you guys can kind of see. We are working on our subscription box, which is this kind of fun little guy right here. I still have to do the stenciling, and we've got some different options for what you can put on there as your stencil. But I'm gonna get my side pieces. So on your sides, you'll notice on this front tile piece, there's 2 little notches on each side right here, and then there's 3 across the bottom, which is where this piece is gonna set into. So what you're gonna do is take some glue, and you can use super glue, wood glue, whatever kind makes you happy, and put it just kind of down into those notches. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. You look, I've got 2 little beads of glue sort of shoved down in there, and then I'm gonna put this piece down into it. It should fit pretty snug. You might have to hold it just a little bit. Kind of set it in and hold it in place. Set that there. Of course, I've got glue on my fingers now, which is why I don't use super glue like ever, because I glue myself too often. I'm gonna do the same on the opposite side and the bottom. I'm gonna put in a decent little bead of glue, and then my piece. And it's not so tight that it is hard to slide in there, but it's tight enough that it's going to, once you have it glued and the glue has dried, it's going to set. This one I'm going to hold for just a sec. Now, of course, Jonathan's ideal way of doing this would include pin nails and all kinds of stuff like that, but I know not everybody has access to a pin nailer at home, so we're not going to go that route. Get our bottom piece in place here. But if you have a pin nailer and would like to, you absolutely can. So I lined up just right. Knew that was going to happen, because I didn't let it set long enough. Slide in there. There we go. Alright, let's put this guy back where he goes. There we go. So your bottom piece should be inside of your 2 outside ones. I'm waiting on glue to set, so I don't want to pick him up quite yet. We're almost there. I'm going to take a chance, just for time's sake, and go ahead and pop this next piece in place. And hope that it stays nicely. I do recommend letting this part set for a minute. This would be a good time to switch over, give it a minute to set, and do your stencil part. But what you'll end up doing is you'll put glue. I'm going to put it onto this part and then set this on top of it. This top rim of this box, you're going to do a bead of glue all the way around it. And of course, the other reason I like wood glue is it gives me a little bit more time and wiggle room. Super glue, you gotta go really, really fast, because if not, it'll dry on you before you ever get a chance to lay anything down. So I've got my glue all the way around there, and I'm just gonna center this guy up on all of those ledges to where it's kind of right to the edge of everything. Let's come back. And again, this is where that heavy book would come in handy. You know, the one that I couldn't remember to grab before I left the house. but it's okay. We're gonna get her done. So now we're gonna set this hole. I'll kind of show you guys real quick what it looks like so far. Now we've got our box, and again, because I did white on this one, I can go back in there and paint those sides. But this is our box with the opposite color set. I'm gonna switch over to the stencil part while this glue dries a little bit, and then we'll get her finished. So inside your kit, you had 3 stencil options. One says mail, one says welcome, and then one will have a last name on it. I've already got a mail one, so I think I'm gonna do welcome this time. So what you'll do is grab a pair of scissors, and in between the white line sections is where you can separate them and without cutting the stencil itself. So I'm gonna cut the welcome off of there. There we go. So all I have left now is my welcome piece. And these ones, save them, put them somewhere else. If you've got something else you can stencil a design on, by all means, make use of these pieces. But we've got our little rectangular guy here, and what I'm gonna do, with this stencil, it's not as difficult, but I'm going to show you guys how we normally recommend to peel any stencil. So you actually have 3 layers of material here. There's a white backer, there's a green stencil, and then there's a clear transfer tape on top. What I recommend is lay it face down, so the green side down, and kind of pick at the corner until the tape lets go, the front clear tape, and then the green, you can kind of see it poking out of the corner. I'll show you what that kind of looks like. See my green's coming out there? Put your finger kind of on that part to hold it in place, and then peel your white backer back at an angle and kind of work it off of there. Now this one, because it's a small stencil, really doesn't need this much precision. I don't know what word to use there. But if you were doing a bigger stencil, this is how we recommend doing it. We just did a huge stencil class. I shouldn't say huge stencil class, an all stencil class, and we did 8x12, 8x24 size stencils, and so they needed a little bit of extra work, but these ones aren't too bad. So you'll work that guy off, and what you have left is the stencil piece and the clear tape. You should have nothing left on this white paper. Now you'll take that green and you're going to line it up right with the edges of this. It's cut to be the perfect size. We're going to line this guy right up here. And again, this is part where it's really, really important for your bottom piece to be dry so that it doesn't try to peel it up. And then I'm going to smooth it down. Now, if you are concerned, you can use something like a credit card or an ID to really squeegee it down, but I don't think I'm going to need that. Just going to kind of press it down. Now, the hardest part, because these are very similar in size, is going to be getting that first corner piece to stay down, but what you're going to do is take that clear tape and we're going to pull that part off, revealing just the stencil. See how when I first pull it up, it's trying to pull my stencil back off too? Sometimes you got to kind of wiggle that piece back down so it stays in place, but I do still like using kind of where I had it flat and pulled close to the material instead of pulling up, because it helps the stencil kind of stay in place. So I'm doing kind of the same thing and working it back just with my fingers, and everything's staying where it's supposed to, and then my tape's off. Now with these stencils, you guys already have tape on these ones, so you don't need to save this piece unless you have a love of stencil tape. So I've got that all on there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my foam brush and I'm going to fill in this space. Now this is personal preference, and years of doing this, I don't recommend swiping across it. Instead, use this like a pouncer and pounce on top of the design to fill it in. This helps from bleeding, this helps from getting paint too thick, and again, this part is really, really important for the light coats. If you go too heavy, it does not turn out well. So I'm just going to kind of pounce and fill it all in. And if I don't get it perfect on the first coat, guess what? That's okay. You just go right back over it in a minute. Pounce, 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 pounce. You just kind of sort of work your way across your project there. I just put a very little bit of paint on the tip of my sponge piece and kind of work up and down into all the grooves. Make sure I fill in anywhere that has the board peeking through, because that's where my lettering is going to go. And I always tell everybody when we do stencil stuff, if this green color is not your jam, don't worry, we're going to peel that whole thing off in a minute and you will never see it again. I do often have I wasn't really thinking green for my project. I'm like, that's okay. You don't got to use green. Just because it's my favorite doesn't mean it has to be your favorite. But we have had some that look really, really cool with the green stencil on there, and I'm like, I mean, you could leave it. there and not paint a design if you really, really like it. Same, we used to use a like a semi-transparent blue color. It was like a turquoisey color, but that was like the color for everything. We used that one, and it also, especially if we did like a white stain background or like a whitewash design on the back, and then put that on top of it, it looked really, really cool. The only thing is that was definitely not a permanent vinyl, so it was intended to be pulled back off. Same as this one, this isn't a permanent one, so it's not supposed to do damage to what you've got behind it. So my fear was eventually it would just fall off on its own, and then if you never painted the design, you would have just a white board with nothing on it, and that wouldn't be fun. So, I think I'm kind of do the same. I'm not going to go super, super heavy on this. I mean, pretty filled in, but not super, super perfect heavy, because I did the sort of linen look on my actual project. Oops, a little more up there where I missed it. There we go. So now that I've dabbed this, I'm going to do one light, and this is going to be kind of a tester moment. I'm going to do one light swish across the whole thing. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm just kind of evening my paint out. There we go. You can kind of see that's what my piece looks like. And then you can let this dry, or you can peel wet since this is a smaller stencil. I'm going to pick just at one of the corners, and I'm going to pull my stencil away. Now, keep in mind, if you have, if you're using one of like Mail, has a spot in the center of the A that you're going to have to pick back out, so there might be some stencil left behind when you pull this off. That's okay. So we're going to pull this piece off of here. To the side. So like I said, the inside of some of my letters are still there. That's completely normal. You could use tweezers, you could use a toothpick. I'm just going to use my nail to pick those pieces back out, but tweezers or a toothpick are your friend. We have dental picks here in the shop that we use for stencil workshops, but I'm still a diehard nail picker. I'm just going in and picking out those little middles. This is the only part where I'd say if you are like not super steady hand, I recommend letting it dry a little bit more so that you're not spreading any of the paint. Like I said, I've done this a time or two, so I've got it down pretty good. That part out, and then all I have left is my little welcome. And of course it's not backwards in real life, just on camera. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do, and you can kind of see where it's at too, on here I've got this center section that doesn't have anything cut out. That's where your nameplate piece is going to stick onto. I'm going to take a little bit more glue, stick on the back of this part. Do the frame, and then kind of an X through the middle of it. It's not going nowhere. But I'll center it up on here. And it's just kind of wherever the tile design ends is where this guy sets in. Set for a second. So that is my other version of it. Now, it's totally up to you on this part. On my original one, and the cord is in your box too. Let me close this up before I spill glue everywhere. There is a string option that you can hang your project like this. And then what I did is I just pulled it from the front to the back and then tied it in a little knot on the back side. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. But that's in there, and we used a suede cord just because I thought it looked a little fancy with this one. Or if you are wanting to mount it more on the wall, or especially if you're going to do it outdoor, this suede cord is great for inside, but outdoor over time, especially if you're one of my locals and you're dealing with heat, it will let go. So if you're going to do it outside, I don't recommend using that. What you can do though for outside is where those holes are, put 2 nails in and actually just hang this directly on the nails. And then you're not going to have any chance in a cord breaking and then your project dropping, and that's no fun. Nobody wants to deal with that. But if you hang this just directly on the 2 nails, you'll be all set to go. So that is our July project. So there's 2 different versions. I'll have to do a post tomorrow and ask you guys which one you like better. The white with the stained background or the black with the white. I still feel like the black and the white is my favorite, but I wanted to see what a different version looked like. Yeah, that's our July subscription box project. I told you guys I would talk a little bit about our subscription box, and then I'm going to head home to eat some crock pot barbecue chicken. So our subscription box is every other month. Every month just gets to be too much in my opinion. There's only so many hours in a day. So we do every other month. We normally do a lot of seasonal projects where it's getting ready for whatever holidays coming up or fall for the season and that sort of thing. This is July's kind of our oddball box where we're past summer, but we're not quite ready for fall. I'm ready for the weather, but we're not there yet. So we did this one. So you get a project. Sometimes we include a mini project in there too. You always get 10% off any of our other DIY projects or classes that we host. It doesn't work on our guest classes, unfortunately. I will mention that part in there, but you do get a 10% off code in each box. It'll tell you what the code is in each box. We do a little membership survey to ask what kind of snacks, what kind of personalized things you like, what other kind of projects you might be interested in, all that sort of stuff. And we've got some cool plans for our next couple of boxes for this year. But the waitlist is open. September is when we will have our next box going out. So we'll open the end of August, beginning of September for new members if you are interested in that. And yeah, we'll be getting into all the holiday parts, which are the super. Not that I don't love the other projects too, but that holiday part is so much fun. But anyway, like I said, I'm gonna hop off here. I'm gonna go home and eat some barbecue chicken. So you guys have a great night. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Hey, Callie and Denise. Yeah, and if you are one of our club members and you have created your project, I want to see it. Please post it to the page because I love seeing all the different ways you guys personalize this project for yourself. But we'll see you guys. Bye.